Nothing about war is fun. I remember the first time where we did a mission and killed a bunch of people, and I remember kind of standing over all these dead bodies and they didn't look real to me. It was like, wow, this was a human, or these were people, you know, a few minutes ago, and now it's pretty wild how quick you go from a person to just matter. It doesn't seem real.
You're not thinking about inflicting violence. You're thinking about doing something that you've done in training scenarios over and over and over, and it almost becomes mechanical. Taking a life is not an issue to be taken lightly, for sure.
What actually goes through your head when you are physically holding somebody and beating their body into submission? Mitch, Gus, I am super excited to have a conversation because it is so rare that I ever get to sit with two Navy SEALs, two friends, two highly successful people, and I'm going to do my best to try to ask the questions I think most people would ask when they get a chance to sit with you. I'm going to start by saying, what is it like to be violent for a profession?
I mean, I would say Gus is definitely more qualified to talk about that in the SEAL sense, you know. But my other profession of professional fighting, that's a violent profession as well. So that one definitely a unique job and a unique type of individual. I think it takes to enjoy that kind of job. Most people don't enjoy the thought of getting punched in the face or punching and stuff. So it's
I think
fun, but
for me, it wasn't something I ever planned on being. Like, I didn't grow up thinking, gosh, I really want to grow up and do a violent job. In the wake of 9/11, it was sort of one of these things that I felt like my patriotic obligation was to go forward and do violence on behalf of our nation. And I found that, you know, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well. And so I did my best to be good at inflicting violence. And part of that was actually finding mixed martial arts during my time in the teams, which is how Mitch and I met each other training together at a jiu-jitsu studio. We were both SEALs, but we weren't working at the same team, and we sort of formed a bond over jiu-jitsu and then the fact that we were both in the SEAL teams.
Most Americans are never violent in their lives, at least not to the level to which you have experienced. They have never felt a human body go limp under their pounding fist. They have never pulled a trigger and put a lethal round into one person, let alone multiple people. They have never seen their closest friends get violence inflicted on them within close range or drag them bleeding from a situation. That's not what Americans experience on their own. That's what they watch on TV. It's what they see in the movies. What actually goes through your head when you are physically holding somebody and beating their body into submission? When their body is resisting, what goes through your mind? When their body starts to fatigue, what goes through your mind? When their body goes limp, what goes through your mind?
Well, I would say, you know, it's different in a cage because that's kind of a sport. You know, it's a sport and something that we both signed up for voluntarily. Fun, or it's fun to me, and you know, maybe not fun to the person getting their face pounded at the moment, but you know, at the end of the day, we're here doing a sport, and that's a totally different mindset than in a war type scenario. And I know that my mindset was definitely different in the cage versus overseas in a war zone. So totally different mindsets and totally different feelings in those situations.
What was the compare and contrast?
I don't really think they compare at all, to be honest.
Then how do they contrast?
One is life and death, and the other one is sport and fun. You know, nothing about war is fun. In my, you know, I can only speak to my experience and my perspective. But war has real serious consequences that are life altering and ending in many cases. Not just for you, but for your adversaries as well. Like, I remember the first time where we did a mission and killed a bunch of people, and I remember kind of standing over all these dead bodies and corpses and everything, and they didn't look real to me. It was like, wow, this was a human, or these were people, a few minutes ago, and now it's pretty wild how quick you go from a person to just matter, and almost like fake seeming, it doesn't seem real. And I just remember thinking like that was interesting, seeing that, and then also having the feeling of like, these people were human beings as well. They have families. They lived a whole life up until this point, and now it's over, and they will never, experience another day in their life. They will never experience another thought. I'm sure they have a wife and kids back home, and that they will never see. Those kids and wives' lives are forever changed and destroyed, because I'm sure they love this person, and I just remember kind of feeling or experiencing all of that and thinking about all of that in that kind of moment and reflecting a little bit over it. And
yeah, I think for me, it wasn't about, you're not thinking about inflicting violence. You're thinking about doing something that you've done in training scenarios over and over and over, and it's almost becomes mechanical. Mm-hmm. And so, you see somebody exit a room with a weapon and you engage them, you put shots, those shots are lethal. And then maybe in the immediate aftermath, or maybe later on that evening or something, you come to the sobering reality that like that person has ceased to be a person at your hands. And so it's like, you don't think about the violence in the moment, but it is a very sobering reality afterwards. And, people who, I think there are people who think about taking life in the context of, oh, this is something I could do or couldn't do. And I don't think it's a matter of could or couldn't. I think it's a matter of like, it's a very heavy realization that you've had to take life.
And I think it's definitely, there's something interesting about when you're in that environment, and like you said, like the training, we do so much training and so many repetitions that I was in training for 3 years doing, these scenarios and basically practicing killing people, practicing doing this stuff, that I was so, and you're in this environment where you're being, told like, this team's good, that you're the good team, they're the bad team. And you kind of dehumanize this group of terrorists or targets or tangos or whatever you want to call them. And it's just drilled in your head over and over. It's almost like you're brainwashed, and that's kind of how it has to be going into these dangerous situations. And, and again, you are just so robotic in a way, just, this is just what I do. I'm programmed to do this. And you get excited. Like I was excited. I was antsy to like, okay, I've been practicing for so long. I want to get in the game. I want to do this for real. And, but it's not a game. It's real life. And these are real people and stuff. And, at the time I felt like I was doing something that was really meaningful and for a good cause. And like, it was almost black and white. Like, we're good, they're bad. Yep. That's it. And, I think when you're in that world and consumed by this and being, consuming a lot of that type of energy and that type of narrative and all of that, it's very easy to be in that mindset and operate like that. And then when you're kind of removed from it for a while, you have a different perspective, and it's just a little bit weirder.
It's a lot of it is, and again, the other thing is when you're thinking about what you're doing on target, a lot of it is like, hey, I have to protect my own life. Mm-hmm. I have to protect the lives of my teammates, and I have to do this job that I've iterated hundreds or thousands of times. There's a really interesting book called On Killing by a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, his last name is. Fascinating book, but he talks about in the early days of American warfare, particularly in the Civil War, people didn't want to kill each other. And so there are battlefields that are littered with musket balls that never hit their target. And the assumption is a lot of those weren't actually aimed at people. They shot them into the ground. They shot them into tree stumps. The idea of killing another human being is kind of repulsive. So in the wake of that, the U.S. Army commissioned studies to say, how can we train our soldiers to be more lethal? How can we make our training more effective at essentially classically conditioning these guys
Less empathy.
when they go on target, less empathy, dehumanize. You're shooting at a silhouette target. You're shooting at a moving enemy. And it's everything from like neuro-linguistic programming to the visuals that you see to the training facades that we run through look like Afghan villages. And it makes the job markedly easier to do, for sure. And whatever you think about it afterwards, it's in that moment, you're able to effectively perform that task to protect yourself and protect your brothers. But there's definitely, a confluence of emotions in the aftermath. It's taking a life is not a light issue, not an issue to be taken lightly, for sure.
I definitely remember in Afghanistan being right away, as soon as we started actually getting into ticks and stuff, and it very much became more about protecting the guys I'm with, and like very, very, very tribal, like our team, they're trying to kill us, so I'm trying to kill them. And that was more important to me than anything else, was just keeping the people that I was with safe, and, not letting anything happen to them, and wanting to take the other guys out for that reason, so that we could go be safe.
Mitch, you transitioned from a Navy SEAL career into a professional MMA career. What elements of the violent lifestyle, the mindset, to use your word, the mindset of violence, what did you take with you from the SEALs? What benefited you? What was the same? What was different? Did any part of it hinder you?
I wouldn't say anything hindered me, for sure, but I would say just knowing how hard I've had to push myself in order to get through SEAL training, and not just in BUDS and SEAL training. Being a SEAL in general is just constant suckfest. There's a lot of the training is way harder on purpose than the missions, and it's because they want you to be overly prepared for anything. And so it doesn't, the suck doesn't stop at BUDS. It gets worse. And so I was just very used to enduring uncomfortable, difficult things, and training for MMA is uncomfortable, and pushing yourself very hard when you don't want to, etc. So having that strong work ethic and kind of drive from being in the SEAL teams and pushing myself, working hard, I think helped me with my mindset towards training, and just having that mindset of a warrior in the SEAL team is you're never going to give up. You're never going to quit. You're never going to, you're fighting to win and be as extremely violent, lethal as necessary to get the job done. And that was my mindset in the cage as well. Like I know that this is not life and death. I know that this is a sport and fun, but in that instance, it's a man who's trying to impose his will on me and cause harm to me, and I'm trying to not let that happen. Mm-hmm. And I need to cause harm to him in order to squelch that. So
you described going through training and training on silhouettes, training on tangos, training on our team versus their team, and the space that gives you to dehumanize and the space that gives you to desensitize. Did you carry that with you into the ring, or did you see the other person in the ring as a human? Did you see the other person in the ring as a peer, as a playmate?
Yeah, definitely. No, I am not the type that, like, I don't need to be angry at someone to fight you. I'm happy. I'm enjoying this. This is fun. Like, that's why I was saying it's a weird profession. like it's a weird type of person that enjoys MMA because it's punching and kicking each other, you know, and that is painful. And a lot of people don't want to do that for fun. But I do. I enjoy it. It's fun. And like when I get, you know, caught with a good punch, I'm like, oh man, you know, nice job. Like, and that's a weird, you know, thing. And so I definitely don't need to be mad at the person that I'm fighting. And I know a lot of fighters do, because they need to have something in them, because they don't really want to hurt someone or whatever unless they have a reason to. And I'm not like that, but I've never understood that about people. And I've always, again, like you said, like, do I look at this person as a peer or something? And I do, because I'm like, this person probably has more in common with me than a lot of other people. You know, they enjoy this weird thing that I do too. And we just you need to have a dance partner, you know? So I'm like grateful that you're like here willing to do this weird game with me, you know? So I've never had any animosity towards my opponents or anything like that. Never needed to. And I do look at them like they're a person. I'm not trying to, like seriously harm them. Like I actually would pray before my fights, and I would pray that for victory. I would pray for strength, aggression. I would pray, you know, that I would win, but I didn't want any serious harm to me or my opponent, because my opponent has a family too. My opponent is, you know, probably trying to make a living doing this or whatever. They're after the same goal. There can only be one winner, you know? So, but I don't want to really harm them. I just want to win.
And do you believe that any part of that mentality came from your time with the SEALs, or do you believe they're two separate mentalities? I ask because, I mean, I just have to call it out. You literally just explained your opponent the same way you explained the dead Afghans when you talked about dead Afghanis.
Except for one, you're praying before the match that no real harm comes to him, and at the end of the match, you're giving him a hug. Or this is even in training, you know, it's simulated violence. You're pulling your punches and your kicks a little bit, but like I've rolled with Mitch plenty of times that we're trying to choke each other out. We're trying to put an arm bar on each other. We're trying to submit each other. Or we're simulating ground strikes. And it's like, you don't mean harm on that person. At the end of the day, you shake hands, and even in a ring when it's a little bit more violent, you see people at the end of the fights. I've seen Mitch at the end of fights go over, pat a guy on the back, tell him great fight, you know, and it's like 5 seconds ago you were trying to legitimately hurt that guy. In combat, no. In combat, I am trying to end you, and I understand that you're trying to end me, and it's like only one of us is walking away from this thing.
In the moment, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand your point. I don't have the experience.
I personally don't, you know, at that time in my life in the SEAL teams, I was very much more violent and like wanting to just kill all of the bad guys, you know, the bad guys, and just kill the entire team so that they can't kill any of our guys. And that was really my mindset. And now, being removed from it, being a little older, having more perspective, etc., just my views are a little different. I really think war is terrible. I think war is like the craziest thing on earth, and it's hell on earth. You know, it's insane to me that, you know, I've been watching footage of the Ukraine Russia war going on right now, and that's the craziest like footage. And like you see these people are so terrified, and they're like, you know. And I'm really just thinking about this. I'm like, wow, these people have no idea who they are. Like, I have no idea who this person is, but I'm trying to kill them because some politicians told me to. You know, and it's just that thought is just wild and insane to me. And it's like, well, I did the same thing, you know, and the more I look back and just think about it, I'm like, war is just absolutely insane. It's crazy. And you think about how many people have died. Like World War II, 85 million people died in that war. And it's like, we were talking earlier today about like, people really don't fathom what a million or a billion is. You know what I mean? Like 85 million human beings died in that war. And I mean, and that's just one war.
Yeah.
there's been wars throughout the history, and it's still ongoing. Look at Gaza and how many people have died there. And it's like,
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
it's just so bizarre to me. It's so crazy. And so now my perspective is just totally different, and I'm really against war. I understand that it's necessary at times and stuff, but I think it should be like an absolute like last resort. And just the fact that like people are willing to do that is so crazy. And it's like, I was willing to do that though.
And I don't think anybody who's ever been to war and experienced like actual heavy combat would ever wish for another war, ever want for another war. And I remember, around the 2020 election when things were getting really politically divided around COVID and the election and what happened. And you heard people sometimes throw out this idea of, I think we're headed for civil war. And I was always quick to say, like, nobody wants that. You don't want that. Trust me. Like, nobody who has ever seen the face of war would ever advocate for something like that or say, oh yeah, that's a reasonable conclusion that we should head for. It's like, no, it's you use all diplomacy that you can before you get to the point of being in the position of taking somebody else's life. And I'm like Mitch, like I signed up to do it. Post 9/11, I was like, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to kill all of them. And in the wake of that for 22 years, I, did my best to like take the fight to our nation's enemies. But following that, I'm like, I would never advocate for another. I would never advocate for sending another generation forward to lose friends and have to go through that stuff because it's hard.
Yeah. And, just looking at Afghanistan, that was the war that I participated in. And it was such a dangerous place, and like, lots of just lives lost and destroyed, and, friends losing their limbs and eyes, and forever lives just being destroyed. And then to see the way we just pulled out, at the end of that, and then the Taliban just being armed to the teeth with our own taxpayer, equipment. And you're just like, what was all of that for,
So you bring up a great point, because both in professional MMA and I am assuming at some point in your SEAL career, you didn't win. So what is it like to lose? What is it like to lose in the cage? What is it like to have an objective and either pull back, retreat, or be defeated? I don't even know what it looks like. I don't think anybody except you really knows what that looks like and what that feels like. Can you explain or share what that looks and feels like?
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. With MMA, we talked a little bit about it earlier. Actually, it's one of those things where you are very vulnerable because you don't have a team around you to carry the weight of a loss, and you're also just you in a cage, with your fists and your legs, and this is in your abilities, like whatever you've got, like whatever you possess ability wise versus this man and his abilities, and you're in front of the world and ready to go. And it's not, oh man, I didn't put the ball through the hoop as many times as he did. No, I really just got my ass beat in front of the world to see. I recently got my ass beat by Sean Strickland, and where, to be fair, I didn't really fight back, but I just survived a 25-minute beating.
Check it out on YouTube.
I was just a piñata, but that is a hard pill to swallow, in the sense, like, it's an ego, like you just got beat up for the world to see, so. Oh. But again, I think how you respond to things is more important than the things that happen to you, and like you can make excuses, you could cry about it, you could whatever, or you can just take it on the chin, get up, dust yourself off, and try again. So
in the moment, I would imagine there's a number of very conflicting emotions. There's possibly, I don't know. I'm looking for you to tell me. I don't want to dictate to you.
Well, okay,
is it humiliating? Is it embarrassing? Is it frustrating?
I've lost 2 MMA fights, and they had different feelings with them. So the first MMA loss I experienced, I was already a multiple champion, was ranked number 1 on the East Coast in 2 different weight classes, and kind of had this aura or just this perception that I was kind of unbeatable because I just tore through people, and I was a Navy SEAL. And so a lot of people are like, oh man, you're a Navy SEAL. I bet you could just grab someone and pinch their shoulder and kill them, and it's like, obviously, but
totally.
Definitely true. But, but in reality, I'm a human being. Right. And I can lose a fight, and it's not like I have my team with me, my body armor, my night vision, my gun, all this stuff. It's like, no, I'm in the vessel that I was brought into this universe against another man. Like, that's it. Close the door. And, and a lot of times when I went in that cage, I was victorious. All the times up until this time, I was victorious. So when I had experienced that was also a lot of pressure, because I had the reputation of the SEAL teams. I had the reputation of the undefeated champion for a long time that went in there and just crushed people. It's kind of like when, and you've seen that over and over in fights, and especially with the fighting world. Like when you have a dominant champion for a long time, people are either watching him to just tear through another person, or they're watching him to see if this is the one that takes him out. And I felt that kind of pressure, towards that. And it didn't like crumble me by any means. I handled the pressure well, but I remember that fight specifically. I had a lot of stuff going on, outside of the cage, and lots of pressure with a lot of things going on. And I just kind of wanted to get this one over with. And I remember just not wanting to really even do it, but I had to because of like sponsors and just pressure, like outside pressure, and just people wanting to see you, perform, dance, monkey dance kind of thing. And so I did. And I remember just going out there and just being like, I don't even care. I'm just going to swing for the fences. And hopefully I win, but if not, whatever. And I ended up getting, like a flash knockout in the second round. I almost won in the first round, like almost knocked him out, then didn't. And he ended up, knocking me out in the second round. And I remember like kind of a sense of relief in a way, because it was like, okay, like I didn't know what it was going to be like when I lost, and like, and everyone's been waiting like to see like how long can this go on. You've done 15 fights and not lost one, and it's like, yep, I guess now I know, and I got back up. I'm still me. I still feel the same. Like, yeah, that sucks, I lost, but I'm still capable. I'm still a fighter. I'm still going to keep going. So it didn't really bother me, at all.
What about the second loss? You said there were 2.
Yeah. So the second one was right when I got out of the SEAL teams, and and I was fighting in the LFA, which is like a feeder league to the UFC, and I remember I was promoting our friend Jeff Gum's business. He's a former SEAL, former teammate of mine, went through buds with him, and he has a swimwear company called Sunga Life. And, just because I wanted to be a good friend and teammate to him. So I was like, I have to wear shorts anyway, so I might as well wear your shorts in the cage and promote your stuff. And it's like the Rolling Stones loud, tongue. And it's a bunch of red, white, and blue, it's like a Speedo that I put a cup in. And like, so I'm wearing like this American flag Speedo. This fight venue was in a military hangar at one of the military bases. and we fought in front of the troops. And the guy I was fighting was like, he was a Muslim guy, like this tall black Muslim guy. And his name was like Mumia something, Abu or whatever. And look it up, it's on YouTube. And it's like my most two popular videos on YouTube are me getting beat up. But unfortunately.
That's the way the world
Yeah, right? But so anyway, like this was like another fight where it was like everyone thought I was just going to tear through this guy, and including me. And he was 6'3", long ass arms, everything. And again, so I'm wearing an American flag Speedo. I'm fighting in front of the troops on TV or whatever. And we go out, and I'm not sure if we're going to touch gloves or not. And before I even know what's going on, he's already hit me. And I'm like on Queer Street, like seeing stars, like what's going on? And like I kind of like come to, and he's just in front of me, like trying to punch me, and I'm like, what's going on? And I finally like kind of get my feet planted, and I throw a 1-2 at him, knock him down, but I'm still disoriented, and I literally run over him and trip over him and fall like head over heels over top of him. And then we both stand up and swing at the same time, and it's like an inch difference. And he clips me, and I fall over and get knocked out. And then ESPN picked it up, and it was on ESPN's Sports Center Top 10 countdown number 1.
Man, wow.
And it was like the craziest 30 seconds in MMA, and it was me getting knocked out on. So like by the time like I'm like kind of like, still my head's still fuzzy or whatever, I already have 2 million people talking shit about me on ESPN and my comments and in the YouTube or whatever. So I'm like, damn, well, that sucked. But, again, it was like how you react to it. Like, I didn't cry about it. I didn't whatever. I was just like, man, you know what? That didn't go the way I planned. And I want to try to get that one back. And then I ended up doing a rematch with him and, beat his ass pretty good in the first round. But that video has 10,000 views
and did not make the ESPN top 10.
It did not make ESPN top 10. And and then so for the next 2 years, every time I had a troll online, it was they go straight to Google, look me up, and then comment about, oh yeah, that guy whooped your ass. I'm like, yep, sure did.
He did.
Yep.
He did.
So what's it like losing on the battlefield? What does losing on the battlefield even look like?
I was thinking about that the whole time Mitch was telling his story, because I'm like, how do you quantify this? There was never an operation that I went on that I was like, oh, we just got beat into submission and left, right? The op that comes to mind is in 2008. I got injured, lost a couple of teammates. And for me, that was what it felt like to lose, is like I left that battlefield essentially like limping to a medevac helicopter. And that's like, I didn't kill the guy who shot me. Somebody else killed him. And, I was there like tying a tourniquet around my leg, trying to see what was going on, trying to stay engaged in the fight. But I'm like, I felt like I lost, in a very real sense. I felt like I got my ass whooped on that target. And, when I think about it, or when I thought about it in the aftermath, I gave myself a couple of days to sort of go to a dark place and be like, well, that sucked. That like, I can't believe that happened. Maybe my career's over and whatever. And then after that, the thought that I kept coming back to was, this can't be how my career ends. I can't go back and like get another fight with that guy. Like we killed him and blew his house up. But I'm like, I can get back overseas and fight somebody else. And I was like, I'll be damned if my last engagement in combat over in the Middle East is me getting shot and then having to do something else. And so took a hard road of recovery. And about a year and a half later, I was forward deployed again. And, I was like, if nothing else, I at least want to get back on the horse and be like, yeah, I got over that and got back to work and got back to doing the thing that I wanted to. But there were days when I was like, man, I felt like a failure on that target, because I didn't, because I lost friends and because I should have been in a position maybe that I should have been able to engage that guy. And your mind plays a lot of different things. And it's hard to say a loss, right? Because I walked away from it, and a battlefield loss a lot of times mean you don't walk away. But for me, that was one of the toughest moments to really like digest and say, yeah, damn, I hope it never goes like that again.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because so when you, was it hard for you, or did you kind of doubt yourself, or like, was it a struggle thinking about, or were you scared at all about going back on the battlefield because like that realization of like getting shot, like whoa, that could have ended my life? And I know obviously you weren't scared enough to not go, but were you scared, or did you feel like, man, I could,
You feel more human.
yeah, if I go out there, like, maybe I don't get so lucky next time or something.
There's definitely, and I relate to what you said about MMA. When you were 15-0, you're like, nobody can beat me. I'm Mitch Aguiar. I'm a former Navy SEAL. I'm blowing through guys like they're not even there. And for me, I'm like, had already conducted dozens of combat operations, had been out, had been in gunfights, came out unscathed. And in that moment, I came to a hard stop, face to face with reality that like, I'm mortal. Like I can die out here. This could happen to me. And I think there was the doubts that I had immediately following that were more doubts of like, am I going to physically be able to do the job? I had some nerve complications and a lot of physical therapy and recovery to do. And so for me, it was like, am I going to have this foot that doesn't work right? Am I going to be able to run? Am I going to be able to wear a kit? Am I going to be able to scale rocky terrain with this weird ankle in Afghanistan at night on night vision? And then, yeah, I think as I got closer to doing my next combat deployment, there were questions that lingered in my mind about like, when I go, am I going to be able to engage? Am I going to be able to go through the door?
Am I going to freeze up? Right?
Yeah. Am I going to freeze up? Am I going to hesitate at the door? Am I going to get somebody shot? And I have this saying that hangs in my doorway and has hung there for a lot of years. It says, the soldier's prayer on the eve of battle remains not, Lord, spare me, but rather, Lord, let me not prove unworthy of my brothers. And so that's something that like stuck in my mind, right? Is that like, whatever happens, it's not, Lord, spare me. It's let me not prove unworthy of my brothers.
Yeah.
And so I think in that moment, I was like, whatever doubts I had about being able to go through the door, being able to pull the trigger, or being able to cover somebody's six when they went through, I was like, it just won't come to that. I won't let that happen.
Yeah, and totally, and that is a real thing, because when you're in the SEAL teams, I mean, it's everything is like, you want the guys around you, their approval. You
100%.
want their approval so bad, and you want to be a good dude. You don't want that reputation or whatever, and especially being like a coward or something like. I couldn't imagine anything worse.
Or God forbid you have a moment where you freeze in the door and your buddy goes in and you don't go and he gets shot, and that's on you. And it's like, you just, in your mind, you just make that a non-possibility, and there won't be a moment. I don't care if there's bullets coming right through that door, like you go in.
Yeah, I remember that being a real thing for me. I really wanted to get over there, but a big part of it was I wanted to prove myself to the other guys around me that I was going to be a warrior. I was going to be brave. I was going to be courageous. I was not going to be a pussy. Yeah. And, I was going to be ferocious. And, but at the same time, I'm a realist, and I've never been in a real gunfight.
A real gunfight.
And what is that going to be like, And I remember the first time that actual bullets were flying, and I was like, my instant reaction was excitement. And then, and then my legs started trembling like uncontrollably. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. I was like, really, it shocked me. I was like, wow,
there's
I literally can't
levels of adrenaline coursing through my veins that I've never experienced. And this is
it was like my body knew this is for real before my mind did.
Yeah.
Somehow, and then it was like, whoa, okay, this is real. Okay, this is the time. And, and I did step up, obviously. I stepped up and did what I did. And I remember after the gunfight just being like, did I fuck up? Did I, being so concerned that I hope I did everything right. Like, I hope I didn't do something like wrong or whatever. And I was like, I don't think I did, you know? And
And like replaying in your mind with this room. Okay, that was good.
that, okay.
I
Like,
didn't get,
yep, that was
didn't get
good.
shot in there. Yep.
I ended up getting an award, you know, that, so I was like, okay, cool. And like, I remember getting back to the ready room, and, our chief at the time, he had one leg, and, you know, it was a Silver Star recipient and everything. And he had come, into the ready room, and I'm just sitting there like, oh God, I don't know what they're going to say, you know, because like, especially as a new guy, you're just like, oh God, I hope I didn't mess up, you know? And he goes, yeah, you guys might want to shake Mitch's hand because he just saved your life. And I'm just like, so I'm not in trouble.
So I did good.
Not in trouble? Okay.
I did good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to call out just how shockingly similar your feelings are
Yeah.
to the feelings that millions of Americans feel all the time.
And in those moments,
Well, that which
you
is
would
most
rather-
personal is often universal.
that's a great quote. And I completely agree. And you don't think about it in the context maybe that other people experience, but in those moments, you would rather get injured or die than let down the people around you.
That's, I would say, much more unique to your
Yeah.
experience, right? The idea that you don't want to disappoint somebody, the idea that you worry that you fucked up, millions of people feel that, and they would have never imagined in a million years that you guys would have feelings like that. They would have never thought that that goes through your head. They would have never thought that you survive and win a gunfight, and then you stand in front of the Master Chief, Command Master Chief, and you're wondering, did I fuck up? Did I do a good job? Did I do everything right? Did I clear things the right way? Who was watching? Who was grading me? Nobody's going to think you guys think that way. And it's shocking to me because that is where your minds went. You were so well drilled, so brainwashed is a strong word, but you know, something that you referenced. You were so conditioned for your task at hand that at the end of it, even after dead friends, dead bodies, realizations that mothers and children would never see fathers again, even at the end of all of that, it really came down to, was I professional enough to do the job at hand?
Well, I think it's also a product of the environment in training, and accountability is just absolutely hammered into every aspect of it. And there's nothing you're going to do that's going to go unnoticed, good or bad, and mostly bad. And you just train in the SEAL teams over and over and over till you cannot get it wrong, and you are punished and ridiculed publicly and embarrassed and shamed, you know, when you do. And the reason for that is because the stakes are so high. The lessons learned are written in blood, you know. So there is no, well, just try your best next time. You know, it's publicly shamed, like ridiculed, just, and you don't want that feeling, and it's exposed. It's not, you feel very exposed when you mess up in training.
And they do it to save your life. They do it to save the life
for a reason
of the person beside you even.
And that's why, you know, you care so much, and you just do not want to be that guy that messes stuff up. And especially, like he's saying, you definitely don't want to be the guy that causes the death of a teammate.
100%. Yeah.
There's a sense in movies and video games, in media, that when you are in a life and death situation, whoever your opponent is, it's very obvious when they die. It's very obvious when they're neutralized. Their little light blinks out. Somebody goes, ah, right? The movies always make it look like everyone knows exactly when the target was killed. What is it actually like?
Sometimes it's obvious.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very obvious. Yeah. Sometimes it's real clear that the person is dead. Sometimes it's, you know, you might be 150 meters away and you take a shot and somebody disappears around a corner and it's dark and you're like, well, did he fall back there, or did he pop behind that corner and now he's going to, you know, make his way through the house? And so those are things that you kind of have to, you know, we talk a lot about shoot, move, and communicate, but that's like, hey, I just took a shot at the guy that's on the northeast corner. Can somebody confirm that he's EKIA back there, or did he make entry back into the house and we got another dude to worry about? And it's like those moments of communication and trying to verify what happens, and things get a little foggy. The last thing you want to do is go run around that corner and be like, hey, are you dead? But it is, sometimes it's more clear than others. And sometimes it's like you shoot a guy a handful of times and you're like, that guy's dead for sure. And then you walk by and you hear him groaning or something like that. And hopefully he's not within arm's length of a rifle. And then you shoot him again. But it's like, you don't know. And sometimes it's dark. And I've heard stories of guys getting like shooting a guy through a window in the head, and the guy drops, and they're like, all right, that guy's dead. And then later on that target, we're target secure or whatever, and they have a prisoner that is like handcuffed, and he has like a bandage wrapped around his head, and you're like, you shot that dude in the head and he's still alive, because somehow the bullet like ricocheted, bounced, and and then that guy is still around. So it's never as cut and dry, or rarely ever as cut and dry as what you see in the movies. You shoot 1 or 2 bullets into somebody and they drop down, and there's this dramatic death moment. Very rarely is there like a cry or anything. It's mostly just they drop.
Wow.
Yep. It's weird. It's different every time.
Having seen what you guys have seen, gaining the perspective of 22 years in the SEAL teams, gaining the perspective of 2 careers in violence, what, if anything, goes through your head when you see the condition of our current society and their opinion of violence? Violent TV shows, violent video games, violent games that are available on children's tablets, violent jokes. I mean, there's killing, war simulation, shooting, dying, death, blood everywhere. Does it catch your attention? Does it not catch your attention? Do you see it as categorically different from your experience?
I don't subscribe a lot to the idea that violent video games and movies cause people to be violent. I watched movies and played video games, and I hope my mom and dad aren't listening to this, but like when I was a kid and I was like, didn't want to go commit harm to people. And I wouldn't say I was a pacifist, but I wasn't
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, exactly. Grand Theft Auto. I'm pulling people out of cars and beating them with baseball bats and stuff. I never wanted to do that in real life, right?
But it's so fun to play out on your imagination. Grand Theft Auto, just going to getting a sniper rifle and a bazooka up on the building and shooting traffic, and then the cops come and you have a shootout with them, and
because it's so unreal, it's like far out there.
It's just imagining your thoughts getting to be played out in a way that there is no harm, no foul,
Yeah.
And then it's like I'm frustrated, so I'm just going to take it out on. Yeah. Beating these, stealing these people's car, beating them to death, and and just being as crazy and as wild here, and then I can just go about my day normally.
And we would go out on target overseas.
It's so funny, I knew exactly.
I laugh about this because we would go out on target overseas, and we would go do violence, actual real violence, and we would come back, and to unwind, we would play Halo or Call of Duty. We'd get on and we'd be playing Halo against each other, like simulating the job that we just did, but like on a computer. And that's kind of how we like wound down and decompressed, and because it's so dissimilar to what actual real violence is like. And I think it takes, as much as people might glorify violence, it takes a different kind of person to do violence. Yeah.
Do you think that understanding that violent games aren't going to make violent people necessarily, is there still a sense that violence is being glorified or desensitized? Is it something you think about? Is it something that you don't really waste your time with?
I think.
Oh, good.
I think if you go back through the annals of human history, I think we live in one of the least violent times. I mean, you think about the way warfare was conducted a couple hundred years ago.
Now words are violence.
Now words are violence. Now your dissenting opinion to what I think constitutes violence. But it's like we live in the most civilized, the most pampered, the most wealthy, and you don't have to fight for food. I don't have to go out and kill my neighbor because we share an apple tree and I want to eat the last apple. And there was a very competitive nature to humanity throughout most of the first couple 100,000 years of existence. And I think it's like there is a part of human nature still in our like lizard brain that contains that.
I do think though that this current day and age, I do think that it is more violent than like the 50s and 60s and stuff like that, because I think the culture is different. And like, I follow a lot of rap music and stuff, and the drill scene, if any of you are familiar with that, like drill rap, that whole genre it started in like 2010s in Chicago area, and these local gangs started rapping and putting their raps on social media and YouTube and Twitter and stuff like that, and would get in these or they would kill like rival gang members, and then they would diss them by dissing them in the rap songs and everything like that, and then it became like a social media thing, and people are laughing online, and so it's like a lot of ego, revenge, retaliation killings and stuff. And in particular, and it started in this area in Chicago where the gangs or rival gangs are from 63rd Street, and like we're on 64th Street, and it's because you live here on 63rd, you're the enemy, and you guys live on 64th, you're the enemy. And it's like, well, why is that?
Yeah,
because they killed my cousin, and it's just revenge, retaliation killings over and over and over and over and over. And it's just been this, I mean, if you want to really like just blow your mind, they call it Chirac.
Oh yeah,
there's more killings in Chicago than in all these wars like going on in our inner cities. And it's not just Chicago, it's every inner city in America. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of violent deaths and gun crimes for absolutely no reason. And it's just a cultural problem. And and I've gone way, way, way down the rabbit hole on that subject. And if you want to be blown away, like how ridiculous and wild that is, and it's so sad that there is just no value to human life in that culture and in that experience. And like I'm talking like all of these kids are like 13, 14, 15 years old that are involved in these crimes. And so yeah, like I think it's glorified and everything, and they don't realize the consequences, but it's also because they have literally nothing to live for. Yeah. Like they're in such impoverished, conditions, and there's no opportunity because of the environment they're in, which, in all honesty, is a failure of leadership. And all of these places, ironically and not ironically, are controlled by Democrats. And and that's just a failure. I think a leadership failure on our country. Like we're spending all this money wastefully, as Doge has kind of underexposed all over the world, when we could be putting that into resources in our own country, in our own inner cities, like getting things available for mentorship, and not just ridding crime, and like giving more opportunity to our own country people.
Absolutely. So I have a 12-year-old son. You've met my son. I'm excited for the day that you get to meet my son. He's a good kid. He just turned 12. He's super excited to be 12 years old. Very excited. He calls it he's got 2 glory years, 11 and 12, because once he's 13, he's a teenager, and even he's not excited about being a teenager.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
Awkward years.
But he's 12. He's good in school. He's kind to his sister. He's amazing at helping mom and dad. He's never really known a hard life. I've made it very, very, very important to me to show him a very well-balanced, challenging, but rewarding life. He, like all kids, is very curious about wars. He has studied wars. He's fascinated by wars. He already respects that war is a terrible thing, but a required thing, and people die. And if somebody has to die, he doesn't want it to be the good guys that die. He wants it to be the bad guys that die. There are these concepts that you've talked about today. He already understands on a certain level. For my son, and for all the 12-year-old boys that are out there, what wisdom would you have to give them as they grow into those years that you just rattled off as some of the most fundamental years to kind of define violence in their own head, what thoughts, what guidance would you give to my son or any 12-year-old boy, Gus?
I think there's a utility in training to be violent so that you don't have to be violent. In knowing that you are capable of handling yourself, defending your family, training to the end that hopefully it never comes to that, right? And it's like, I didn't train mixed martial arts or really particularly shooting or any of those kind of things before I came into the teams. But after all these years of training, and part of what I love doing with Everyday Spy is teaching people to be violent if they need to, in the hope that they don't ever have to be.
Very well said.
Yeah, agreed. And that's kind of with the violent hippie, you know, it's our motto is be kind or else. And you can't really say or else if you're not capable of, you know, stopping a situation. Like I've always bullied bullies. You know, I don't pick fights with people, whatever, but I will bully a bully. And you have to be capable in order to do that. And I, again, I'm anti-war now. I don't want it. And I think that love is the answer. I think that we are all one, you know, we're all human beings. I think religions and, you know, all this stuff it's just kind of made up things that keep us separated and divided. But at the end of the day, again, that which is most personal is often universal. We are all human beings. We all want love. We all want to feel love. We all want to, you know, live a good life, enjoy it with our friends and family and loved ones. And everybody wants that, you know. And of course, there are people that mean to do harm and impose their will on others. And for those people, the only time sometimes the way to stop them is unfortunately with violence, you know. But if that's necessary, then you need to be able to inflict that.
Mitch, Gus, what an incredible insight. What an incredible conversation. I couldn't imagine two better spokespersons for this kind of conversation. If people want to continue learning from you, if they want to support you, if they want to be part of whatever you're working on, Mitch, where do they go for you?
I'm on Instagram at Mitch_Aguiar, Aguiar. You can find me there.
And where do they go for you, sir?
So you can find me at everydayspy.com/Gus or also on Instagram at KGUS245.
Folks, if you enjoyed this conversation even a fraction as much as I did, I want you to leave a comment below. I want you to share your thoughts, share your feelings. What was the most encouraging? What was the most discouraging thing said today? What were the insights that you valued the most? Let Mitch, let Gus, let me know what you really resonated with in this conversation about professional violence. Make sure that you like the show. Make sure that you share this with a friend. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, because this won't be the last time these two incredible guys join me for a conversation. I will be including all of the links to both of them in the description below. And most importantly of all, if you want to see whether or not you are wired more like me as a nonviolent clandestine officer, or if you have some of the incredible DNA that is inside these guys, make sure you take the spy quiz below and find out what your results show for you. Gentlemen, if there's anything I've learned today, it's that I didn't even understand how to contextualize violence until I heard it from you guys, which is a humbling thing to admit, but a very real thing. I've only ever seen violence through the lens of an IR drone that we flew in to support people like you. So thank you so much for your service and for everything you've done.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.